What's going on, everybody? I'm Justin from the Collective Objective, and tonight, as the trailer showed that Destiny made, and I think she did a good job with it, um, we're going to talk about mental health and gun violence. So we're just going to focus the whole show on those two issues. We're not going to do current events tonight. I mean, those two things or the two shootings kind of are current events, and there's been a lot of talk in the news about different ways of combating what I would think is an epidemic. Maybe not. Maybe some people disagree, but I think it is. I think it's mostly a mental health issue. I am not anti-gun by any means, but I think we have an issue where people who are mentally unwell are able to get access to high-powered rifles, and they go on these shooting sprees. And until we can figure out how to address the mental health issue, I think the easier thing to do would be address the gun issue and then kind of go from there. So with that, I'll kind of go around the room and let everybody introduce themselves. I'll just go clockwise. So I'll go to Samson, then Mo, and then Destiny. So yeah, I'm Justin. I live in Georgia. The Georgia shooting was close to home for me. And this issue means a lot to me. So hopefully we can have a good conversation. I think we will. And that's all. Samson.
My name is Matt, or I go by Samson. I live in Maryland, and I had my run-in with a lot of the goings-ons about like Baltimore police and a lot of things that go on with that. And I hear a lot of stories. I know stories myself. I'm also really connected to a lot of people that deal with mental health, and actually in Maryland with the gun laws and stuff, actually tie in with mental health in the law. So it's a topics that really hit home for me.
Hi, I'm Mo Smith. I'm from Atlanta. I've been in Atlanta most of my life. So the shooting in Cherokee County in Atlanta, it's definitely hit close to home. Also a truck driver by trade. And also I'm a recurring panelist on the show Talk It Out on Will Nelly Media. As well as a co-host of a new show, Sip and Kiki, which will officially premiere on Sunday at 10 p.m. So it's a lot of pop culture. So if you want to talk about something, a little softer, because you do have to have balance in your life, definitely come and join us, and you'll definitely be entertained.
I will definitely come check it out, and thank you for joining the conversation tonight. There's Destiny. So when Destiny gets her connection situated, I'll let her come on and introduce herself. Until then, Destiny, if you can hear me, it's not pulling in your computer stuff. So yeah, so how? There she is.
There we go.
If you just want to do a quick introduction, Destiny.
I'm Destiny, and not much else to say except this is going to be a touchy subject.
I definitely agree. So I guess the first place we start is probably the Georgia shooting, kind of like what happened, and how we think that something. Actually, we could just cover both of them because I think it's kind of the same issue with both of them. And I'll just say this: how do we stop people who are mentally unwell from getting access to guns? And I know in Georgia, for example, you can walk out the same day and get a gun. And some people would say that's not a bad thing. I happen to think it is a good thing. I think it might not have prevented that shooting in particular, but when you consider the fact that most shootings happen within the household, it could stop an angry husband or wife from going and buying a gun. The cooling off period that they call it, the 3 days, might actually be beneficial in those circumstances. So a lot of people I've seen argue that the cooling off period doesn't prevent anything because these people that are doing these mass shootings they're planning it out, and it takes a long time for them to come up with these plans. So I could see that argument. But as far as husband and wife, or brothers, or arguments within a household, somebody's pissed off, it could stop them from going and getting a gun. And doing something, that cooling off period, because usually in a few days families make up. And that's just kind of my thoughts on that. The other thing is, so the mental health issue itself, it's touchy because there's HIPAA. So you have to somehow work around HIPAA and have it where you can raise a red flag on somebody if they have certain mental health conditions. Like it sounds like specifically the guy in Colorado might have been a paranoid schizophrenic just based on what his family was saying. I don't know. I'm not a doctor or anything. It just sounds like that is a possibility. But it was undiagnosed. So again, what do we do? Can the family? We also have a problem with healthcare in our country where not everybody can get the healthcare that they need. And if the family saw these red flags and they didn't have insurance, they didn't have the money to get this guy the help that he needed, then where do we get him into healthcare and fix that problem? So I don't know how everyone else feels on the panel. I just want to say that I am not in favor of banning guns, but I look at it similar to COVID. We had a problem with COVID, and at first we quarantined. So maybe we could do something similar with guns where I don't know if we could take them all away. I don't know what the solution is, but maybe we could take guns away briefly and, with the intention of returning the guns. So we briefly take them away like we did with the quarantine, and then we give them back once we can address the bigger issue, which in my opinion is mental health. That's all I have. I don't know who wants to weigh in.
Well, so obviously it's always a very touchy subject to just say in any capacity to even suggest that in any time to take away any guns, like a fierce trigger for a lot of people. And so one of the ideas that I had in my mind was to come up with like a safety scorecard that is like similar to how a credit report would work, but based on your score is the type of gun you're legally allowed to purchase. So obviously a higher score would enable you to even buy like semi-automatics or AR-15s, but to get there, you do have to put in the work and the effort to get there. And I think making people put in the effort and the work will in itself translate to like a level of awareness and care with your guns, period, where I think we have a situation now where it's just too easy to just get it when you're emotionally just very distraught. A lot of incidents do happen where, and I could be told the statistics aren't quantifiable, but there are situations where someone goes out and buys a gun at the time, the day of the shooting. And I think we should at least make it so, there's some level of effort you have to do to get a gun and not the same day of. And that's how I'll start it.
Yeah, I'd have to disagree.
Okay.
Due to the fact that when you're dealing with, well, first of all, let's go with the statistics. NPR just came out with an article where the rate of deaths dealing with gun violence is 3.96, so 4 people for every 100,000. And also 2020 figures were gun deaths equal to about 10,000 deaths, approximately. The reason why mass shootings are prevalent is because they're on the news. And furthermore, I mean, I hate to be the one that brings up race, but when you put extra regulations on guns, it affects poor and people of color more so than the general public. Let's not forget that the history of gun control is steeped in white supremacy. gun control started after Ronald Reagan got shook because the Black Panther Party showed up to the Capitol building in Sacramento with their rifles. Right after that, the day afterwards, they put up legislation for gun control, which was at that time backed by the NRA. So,
If we're going to make an argument about something being steeped in racism, even voting was steeped in racism in the founding of our nation. So, I mean, it was only meant that you're a white male and have property where you're allowed to vote. That's what our country was founded on. But we changed and we evolved.
And that's a false equivalency.
There was also the year after, because there was a hotly debated subject even when the Second Amendment was ratified. It was definitely deeply contested then. And at the time, when they said, well, we should have marked each gun with a gun registry, so each gun was numbered when they handed them out after the Second Amendment was ratified. I mean, they never in their minds thought, hey, we're going to give them an AR-15, for no reason, not tagged or anything. They had imagining like it was going to be a controlled situation from the beginning.
However, that was stricken down due to the fact that the whole purpose of the Second Amendment was to protect themselves against another monarchy. But I'm not even getting into the whole Second Amendment thing. I'm just like stating about facts that are within our lifetime. And the roots of gun control in modern society was steeped in protection of Caucasians in the greater United States. So, my heart definitely goes out to those families that were affected by gun violence. But I do find it interesting that when gun violence has been hitting the inner cities for quite some time, and no one really cared about it until it started hitting the suburbs.
That's true. That's a very good point.
So, so again, it seems that when it affects the suburban areas, that's when people say, oh no, what do we do? No, we should have tried to nip this in the bud if we were really concerned about it beforehand, but people are not really that concerned about it, because if they were, especially with our politicians, it would have been would have been already taken care of already. It had been in the past. I know there was a Brady bill back in the late 80s, which it did expire. But okay. I'm sorry, I got distracted by the comment. Because I hate to say it, but he's right. It's not about the guns. It's about our culture in this country. We're in a Puritan, sexually repressed society, and if we were sex positive, people would get laid more. People wouldn't be as angry. People wouldn't be as greedy, and you probably wouldn't. With the deaths that we do have, we probably wouldn't have as many. And I know that's kind of abstract and kind of.
I mean, that our society is driven by the louder voices, and we give a lot of credence to that. So we work on our country works on a far different dynamic than a lot of other countries do. I mean, we basically what you described was accurate until it hit the suburbs, until anyone cared. But that is basically anything. It's not just guns, especially like with drugs and everything. When heroin hits and it's like hitting the white people and everything like that. It's when people started caring about heroin, and that really deep rooted into our country.
But also, what's even if you don't want to take a look at the mass shooter situation, you want to look at gun deaths in general with gun violence. If you look at the uptick in numbers in the inner cities of crime and thanks, Duryea. If you look at crime in general, the uptick always happens is always tied to economics. People talk about Chicago all the time. Chicago has some of the most stringent gun control laws in the country. However, they have some of the highest rates in the country as far as gun violence. And unfortunately, it's not because of the guns, it's because these kids don't have access to jobs. Manufacturing jobs went down 20% within the last 10 years within that city. That's the similar levels that Detroit faced within the late 80s, early 90s, when that city went under due to economical distress. So basically, you have these people that don't have jobs, so they just find menial work, i.e., McDonald's and or Burger King or whatever, and that doesn't leave any jobs for teenagers. They don't have any money. Their parents probably don't have any money either. So, and another statistic, if I remember correctly, if I remember the statistic right, the annual budget for Chicago PD is $93 million. Meanwhile, you have outreach for youth is 450,000. So basically, you give these kids no avenue, no resources. Of course, they're going to run amok.
Well, I mean, police budgets in every city are gigantic. I mean, especially they cut a huge percentage out of budgets. And that's a great point to bring up. But really, you started with saying you disagree with me, and I wasn't suggesting taking away any guns. My idea was to...
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No problem. No problem. With like how we regulate voting, that seems to be a kind of thing that's accepted to some level. To the degree we regulate it is definitely often disagreed with. But that is technically a constitutionally protected right. Same with guns. I mean, both have amendments on there for different reasons, but they do. And when we look at how we're willing to put laws in to regulate voting, and poll tax is still a thing that's not supposed to be legal, but it happens and it's accepted everywhere. And in various forms, it happens. Well, why can't we just put a little bit of regulation in there that is common sense, have a nuanced discussion about it, and not talk about just taking away guns, but talking about, well, let's just have some common sense regulation on who can have what guns sometimes. Because right now, our gun laws are propped up on DC versus Heller.
So,
I mean, it's not the Second Amendment.
However, let me just answer the question. I didn't say you wanted to take away guns. You stated you wanted to add regulations to it. And I stated that unfortunately with regulations, it affects more people of color and poor people more than what's happening in those suburbs. So just like with voting, there was recent voting changes that just happened in Georgia that was just put into law, which honestly should be unconstitutional. Why can't I give someone a bottle of water that's been standing in line for 4 hours? These are measures in order to create voter suppression. So you're basically using it to keep people out.
I could make a kind of a glib reason not to, because it's actually the same reason why you don't do it, hand out liquor. It's technically an influential situation, but that could be their legal justification. Is what I'm saying. I'm not defending it. I'm explaining that can be the legal justification, because you can go out there, be the one, pass out bottled water. Hey, by the way, can you know what so-and-so is doing for making you have to stand out in this line and needing this water? It can be an undue influence while you're waiting in line to go vote, which is technically an illegal point.
As long as you don't have on any paraphernalia or signs stating for either a candidate, then that would be null and void. The problem is that voting has become so regulated that it's used as a deterrent for people to do it. And the reason why some of the powers that be does that is because they know if they have a higher turnout, they lose.
So you're touching on the point that I'm trying to get to, is some regulations okay. not all regulation, and that's the point nuanced point I'm trying to make, is that.
But go ahead.
Go ahead.
Sorry. What I'm saying is that while there are some regulations that are good, like the EPA, that's good because I want to make sure that the environment's clean. So,
but not all
so-and-so's
EPA regulations good.
Excuse me?
I mean, not all EPA regulation is good.
Okay. I was trying to help your point. However, you're basically making mine. There are some regulations that are bad, and they also unjustly affect people of color and poor people more so than the general public. And having gun control is one of those things. Just like mandatory minimum sentencing is also one of those things. Is dealing with the drug war. No one really cared about people's mental health and fortitude when it was crack cocaine in the inner city. But all of a sudden, oh, it's Percocet, it's oxycodone. They're, little Jimmy is hooked, which ironically, it was racism that prevented a lot of black people from having that same horror. And mind you, I am empathetic to those people that are hooked on those drugs because those synthetic drugs are way more addictive than their natural counterparts. However, using a broad instrument like the law to handle a nuanced case of mass shootings, it's like basically a bull in the china shop. It's going to cause more damage to our civil liberties as opposed to actually solving the problem.
Yeah, to jump off what Paul was saying, I think during COVID, all of a sudden when we were on lockdown, everybody was all of a sudden concerned about domestic violence and mental health. And it's like, where were you people before? Now you're concerned about it?
And just to piggyback a little bit off what Mo's saying, so it's the path to hell is paved with unintended consequences. A lot of the time, the government has regulations, and it ends up affecting people of color and poor people more than it affects those that have the money to overcome it. But what is the solution? So if government regulation isn't the solution, then what is the solution? How do we stop this from happening? Because most of the time when it happens, well, now it's starting to be like grocery stores, but before it was schools were a big target, concerts, where a lot of young people pretty much go. And I'm not saying like I'm not an ageist by any means. What I'm saying though is, people like the most vulnerable people in our society should be the most protected. So how do we protect them? Children and teenagers who seem to be the most targeted in the past. Recently, not as much, but in the past.
What I think more of what we're describing here of like the bad effects of regulation isn't really necessarily technically the regulation itself, even though some of it does allow it. It's the enforcement of it that has been really bad, especially with, I know Baltimore police, they do plant weapons just so they can get a conviction, and that shit needs to stop, period. I mean, there's ways that our system in itself and the entire culture of it permits abuse of whatever regulation we put out there. And what I'm trying to say is, if we put a way out there that doesn't take away rights, but lets you put effort into getting something and never closing the door to getting something, when you put effort into something, you value it more, period. I mean, that's just human nature.
But you're basing that on ideal of virtue, and I think unfortunately we're in a society where you have literal celebrities that have done nothing in order to gain their celebrity. If you really want to make concrete regulation that would actually help the problem, it would go twofold. Number one, getting a gun license should be just like getting a car license, a vehicle license. You can go in and do it the same day, but you have to go take a test to know how to use that gun. Also, at the same time, we need to start building up our mental health community because that's been strained. Money has been taken from that in these cities to prop up the police force. So, hence, whether you call it reallocate the police or defund the police, that has to happen because unfortunately, with city budgets, it's a lump sum game. If you give it all to the police, there's no other money that's left in order to facilitate other issues like dealing with mental health and community outreach and things of that nature, which are better strategies in order to reduce gun violence.
I just don't think it's simple as just saying get a license and take a test to get that license. It has to be training. It has to be more involved in that.
Well, I mean, in order to get your driver's license, you do have to go through training in order to pass that test.
You don't. You can just pass that test.
Not in the state of Georgia. You have to have, if you're under the age of 18, you have to have a number of hours. Okay. Again, this is dealing with states' rights.
So that's like another thing is, so what do we do about that? There's a lot of differentiation between states with gun laws. So like,
it's very annoying because as like I stated earlier in the conversation, I'm a truck driver. Now, if you work for a company, most companies do not allow you to have a firearm within their trucks. They'll tell you that it's against the law, but that's not true. It's mainly because of sorry, I'm getting distracted by the comments. It's mainly due to the fact that it's a liability issue. If you shoot someone while you're in that truck and you're on duty, then that means that company is liable for that incident. But yeah, I know it's crazy. But with firearm laws, it changes from state to state. So if you're a truck driver and you're traveling between states, one state says you can keep it in the back of your bunk because that's your personal living quarters. Some states says it has to be disarmed. Some states, they say you're not really supposed to have it at all. I believe New York State is one of those states because they don't recognize every licensure. Which, if you want to talk about regulation, just like a driver's license, if I have a driver's license in Georgia that is valid, it's valid in every single state of the union. It should be the same thing for a gun license. And with that gun license, there's a set of training. Yes, you can go and get it the same day if you already had that training, just like someone like, myself, if I'm going for a renewal, or if I allow my license to lapse, I can bring in the proper paperwork and get it reinstated. Or I can, if I'm a first timer, then I can go get proper training on how to use that weapon and understand the importance of that weapon. Now, unfortunately, that's going to affect, poor people. So you should also have in place some type of program where if you don't make a certain amount of money, you should get some type of subsidy because we want you to be safe. I mean, Switzerland, they have every citizen become a member of the military, and they're trained in how to use a service weapon. I'm not saying that we should go that far in the U.S., but I feel no, I don't personally carry, and that's just my personal. But at the same time, I'm pro-choice, even though I personally don't believe in abortion. I feel it should be an individual's decision if they want to carry or not carry.
I agree with
Duryea.
Hey, Duryea.
Hey,
How are
Mom.
you, sir?
Hey, Destiny. Hey,
Hey.
Justin. Hey, Samson. I'm all right.
with the comment about
I've been watching y'all while I was wrapping up things.
Mm-hmm.
Continue.
Yeah, I was just gonna say I think it should be a federal thing, not a state thing. That it's nationwide. You have to take the test. You have to get a license to have a gun.
I mean, it just sounds like more of the same proposed here from Mo, and just like wherever it doesn't work, just put a Band-Aid on it. And to me, it's just still, we're going to have loopholes, we're going to have problems the way we've been dealing with it. And if you empower things to really, where I've already pointed out, where I think police culture has really abused it, especially in Baltimore, and we allow that to be in their hands like that. I don't think we're going to get to the right spot, and that's why I did propose something like a safety scorecard, where it now takes it to where when you acquire it, what you had to go through to acquire it. And I think that's where we need to really tackle the issue. But on top of that, I also wanted to propose the counterbalance of where we have an issue of how we handle gun ownership and mental health. Because in Maryland, you know that situation where they're dealing with the Fourth Amendment and SCOTUS right now, where the guy got sent to a mental health institute overnight because that's what the police wanted to do. In Maryland, that's a lifetime ban from owning guns if you spend one night in a mental health institute, whether it's your fault or not. And so we use that as a way to just strip your gun rights.
Well, again, I didn't propose a regulation on mental health. I stated that we need to instill more mental health programs, because the issue is not the gun. Because I mean, there was an incident in Charlottesville where the guy literally used a car to run over people. It's not the actual tool.
Well, I agree with you. It's not the gun. That's my entire premise.
So
maybe I'm not being clear about that.
You're okay. Go ahead.
My point is about how the person uses it. The person concentrating on how the people are trained and like the effort that they have to put in to get the gun. It's not about putting the onus on the gun itself.
But even if what you're proposing is 10-day waiting period, if they're not completely sane, them 10 days are not going to matter. They're going to still have that same urge, and they're going to probably get to more people once they get that gun, because they've been holding that energy for a longer period of time.
Can I
go ahead?
Okay. What I was saying is that
go ahead. And when I'll talk when Mo is complete.
Okay. So you're saying that with that there's not enough onus when you get a driver's license, which I don't really agree with that, because what I'm stating is that with a driver's license, if you not already had a driver's license, you have to go through certain training in order to receive that driver's license. Like I said, I'm a truck driver. I had to go through certain training in order to drive a commercial vehicle. I had to pass a permit. I also had to pass the actual license in order to drive in the general public. Because quiet as it's kept, I'm hauling around on average 75 to 80,000 pounds. That can do a hell of a lot more damage than a gun, AK-47 or AR-15 any day of the week. So if my mental health is not in its proper place, then that means I need there should be avenues where I can get help in order to do that. I don't believe in just because somebody had an episode where they were put in a 5450, where they're basically institutionalized, that bans them from having guns for the rest of their life. Hell, I don't believe that just because you committed a crime, depending on the crime, I don't think you should revoke your right to have a gun, which there's a lot of people that are nonviolent offenders, i.e. drug charges, where they're not able to get a weapon.
Yep,
so yes, we created, but we're still talking about less than 10,000 deaths a year in this country. We're 32nd as far as the amount of deaths per year to gun violence.
I think it's important to, when you have these conversations, I think people try to I think some conversations are cool for generalizations, and I think some are touchy and tricky with generalizations, and gun laws are that. Because as a person who is actually I'm pro the Second Amendment. However, I'm not pro the Second Amendment blindly. You know what I mean? I also understand that owning a gun should be our right, but it shouldn't be, but it's also a privilege, right? We have the right not to have our guns taken away flippantly. But the key is we have a right not to have them taken away flippantly. What do we have to do to earn them? And that's the issue. It is way too easy to earn a gun in this country, legally or illegally. It's just way too easy, period. Like, people like to take, oh, about the illegal gun. No, all that shit is way too easy to get a gun. If I decided right now that I needed a gun to kill somebody, I could have one in the next few hours, period. And that's not okay. They need to crack down. They need to crack down on access to guns legally and illegally. The reason you hear more people talk about the legal access is because once something's illegal, it is out of the public's hands to regulate how it's dealt with. We hopefully leave that up to the people who are enforcing the law enforcement. So it is not our job to determine how you enforce the law yet. But at some point, I think it will become, but that's a whole other conversation. The idea is the laws that we put in place, how are these laws affecting us, right? So at the end of the day, if I decided right now that I wanted to do hair, I want to start doing hair in my kitchen. Do you know that it's likely, if somebody told on me, that if I started doing hair tonight and somebody told that I was doing it illegally, I could be shut down, fined, possibly arrested tonight for doing hair. However, if I decided I wanted to kill somebody, or just let me say kill somebody, just get a gun, I could have one by the end of the night. But in order to legally do hair, it would take me several weeks.
Well,
and not only would it take me that long, I would have to pass the test. Same thing that Mo was saying earlier about passing a driver's license test. You have to pass it. Period. Like, let's not talk about, oh, well, it's easy to pass a driver's license test. Fine. But you still got to pass it. And I know as someone who failed twice, I had to pass it. Which meant that there was I know. Let's leave that trauma in the past. Let's leave that trauma where it's at. Okay, it was tough for me, because I was the only one that didn't pass it. But the point is, why is that a problem? Like, it's not encroaching on your right to have an arm. What it's saying, if you're a responsible gun owner, and as a person who's been trained with a weapon, if you're a responsible gun owner, you want nothing more than another individual who has a weapon to be just as equally responsible. If that means that they can't get a weapon by 12 o'clock tonight, I'm fine with that. Look, it took me, I had to train with it. I had to learn not to point. I had to walk with my weapon down at, like, if you ever lifted your weapon like even this high, you getting your ass smoked. Period. And that's the kind of stuff. People, it's too easy to get access to weapons. I could have a weapon tomorrow. And it's not even, and I know people don't like to think about this, it's not even just about hurting other people. I could hurt myself with the weapon because I'm not trained with it. Guns are not freaking toys.
60% that likely that would happen. If you got hurt, if the gun was ever used, 60% it would be used against you or a family member. It's like a crazy number. It's like,
there you go. It's not like it, and that's why I'm coming from this as like, I don't like to claim a political party, but I guess my ideologies are left leaning. So I'm a left-leaning, liberal-leaning person who actually is ex-military, believes in the right to have a weapon, but also believes in understanding what you have and the power that it holds, how to use it, all that stuff. And I think if the government decided to take precautions, whereas it wasn't so easy to get a gun, I don't think that's encroaching on your Second Amendment right. I actually would beg to argue that it actually protects your Second Amendment rights. Saying that gun ownership is a privilege, therefore you have to earn it and then sustain it. Abortion kills way more than guns.
Actually, he's right.
Let's be clear. Let's be clear.
He's right.
That's debatable. That's debatable. Because in order to kill something, it has to be like a lot. But anyway, we're not going to go into there. But that's a whole nother conversation. But it's a whole other conversation.
CDC, he's right though.
But I mean, even so, let's be clear. Let's say he is right. This is what I have an issue with. And is that Todd, or is that another Todd that I don't know? That's Todd. Todd, shut the fuck. Like, where you at, bro? Like, if you're gonna come on. Anyway, when it comes to stuff like that, this is the issue I have. Two things can be true at once. I hate these arguments where people act like, oh well, black people shoot people too. Okay, gun control. like what are you saying? Like, it doesn't change the subject. Yes, abortion may kill more than guns, But guns kill. Abortion kills. Like, if you're going to have an issue with it all, have an issue with it all. Don't use one to justify the other. If it's all bad, it's all bad. Thanks, Mo. That's me. Diarrhea.
What?
He's calling me diarrhea because I haven't heard that joke since kindergarten. But it shows the wavelength people live in. So
okay, so back to your point. If you're really concerned about deaths and how to regulate deaths, 50,000 people die from alcoholism.
How you like them apples, Todd? Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Do we ban alcohol? Hell no. We tried that already.
Ban it. Get rid of it.
Whoa, we tried that already.
Alcohol, schmalcohol. Prohibition.
Alcohol doesn't kill people. People kill people.
Well, alcohol.
People kill themselves with alcohol. Yeah.
Listen, though, he's got a point, though. You do and you don't have a point. Absolutely. Listen, I don't believe in that guns don't kill people. People kill people. People with guns kill people. That's my.
And so do people with cars.
And, yes. But here's the thing about it. Here's the thing about it. Back to what you said, though. No. Back what you said, Mo. When you have a car, you will get punished more swiftly if you kill somebody with a car. Not more swiftly, but there's less. No, I'm not trying it. What I'm saying is there's less debate around whether you kill somebody with. If you kill somebody with a car, hit and run, vehicular manslaughter, you'll get charged and convicted. For the most part, like I mean, I can't say I know every statistic, no, but what I've seen is generally if you harm someone with a vehicle, listen, this is coming from me being in jail. They don't play about DUIs. They don't play about that. Like, they really don't play about that shit. Like,
you know why? Because it's a money grab. It costs $10,000 for one DUI charge.
Man, you might be right, but the energy that I've received being in that position was that everybody in the court system, there's certain charges that they just don't mince with. And I don't think it's the money, because really all of that shit brings them money. I think it's the charge.
But more so DUIs. Like I said,
but there's other stuff they can get. I know, but when you're sitting in court, and there's one DUI charge and like 50 gun charges, and these motherfuckers gonna be in here because they got charges already. They're about to be in here for 5 years. No, it seems like they're so. I'm not saying that that's not a money grab, but I'm saying everything in the criminal justice system is a money grab. When it comes to DUIs, though, you have a different energy behind it. People get mad because it's like, why? Like, just fucking call a cab. I think I'm not gonna go into that. I don't want to get derailed. But the idea is that I'm sorry. Go ahead, Justin.
No, you go ahead. I'll wait till you're done.
The idea is that when you look at all of this stuff, even back to the car thing, you can't just get a car. Not only is it hard to get legally the license to have a car, but then actually getting a car is fucking difficult. You gotta call a goddamn bank. Or you gotta get. They won't even let you take the car off the lot until your insurance approves that shit.
In some states, but also you also have private sellers.
You're right. No.
Punker for under
I'm not. Yeah, you're right. But my point is, generally, in order to get access to a car, which arguably, but I actually agree, is equally as destructive, you absolutely have to go through a process. I don't have to do that. I can have $300 and a whim and have a gun by tonight.
But also with that private sale, you have to transfer your title. I mean, there's a legal paperwork between that too. There's regulation everywhere. What?
In the state of Georgia, all you do is sign the title and have a bill of sale. So you can still get that all done basically in a day. I think we're talking about semantics. And if we really want to solve this problem, we would focus on the economical state in this country. We would also focus on mental health, because again, the gun is just a tool. If they don't have access to guns, they will find another way. We know that because of what happened in other situations. Timothy McVeigh did not have a gun, but he was able to blow up Oklahoma City buildings.
But here's the thing: why do you have to I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Because
me and Mo will argue all night. Like me and Mo will do this forever, and we still love each other.
We're talking about mass destruction with
I wanted to pull up a statistic issue on you then, because if you're saying they'll find another way, but what's the number they're capable of killing in another way? I mean, knife. You have acid chemical attacks. I mean,
Pipe bombs.
But most of that shit is illegal. Like if you buy, I'm sorry to cut you off, Samson. If you buy too many items that can be used to make a bomb, arrested. Period.
Also, if I buy too many aerosol cans, they start to look at me because they're like, are you using that to snort, the smoke and inhaling? What's going on?
But the thing about it is like, this is like, he said mass destruction. Like, I hate when people say, I don't hate when people say, but it's interesting. It's an interesting process to look at it and say, okay, people with guns, if they can't get a gun, they'll do something else. Okay, if I can't get a gun and I want to do something else, that means I'm going to have to know how to build a bomb or something like that, or a knife. Like a knife, let's be clear, a knife is not going to do the type of damage to a group of people that a gun will do, because a gun will scatter people. So all I really have to do is pick you off. A knife, you might have people swarm your ass. Yes, you might get some people out, but you're going to get a lot less people, because just like what happened with that third plane in 9/11.
I was going to say that too.
Some people took that fucking risk. They said, you know what? Look, I know I'm about to die, but I'm not about to let this motherfucker take out all these other people. So I'm going to take this stabbing. And my point is just to say that let's not pretend like guns aren't more destructive. Yes, if someone wants to do violence, they're going to do it. But reducing the easy access to guns, or having deeper screenings, I think it's necessary, because like we spoke about mental health. The truth about mental health in this country is not only do law enforcement officials not have a strong enough, and when I say not, I'm not talking about every person who's a law enforcement official. There are plenty of law enforcement officials who actually do know the signs of a mental health breakdown, that do know the signs of a mental health crisis, and they will know how to deal with that. But it's not widespread enough, right? So because of that, you cannot depend, and not even just beyond law enforcement. Our country as a whole does not deal with mental health well. We feel like mental health equates to crazy. When it's like this, I could have a cold. That doesn't mean I've got leprosy.
Yep.
Right? We don't look at it like that when it comes to physical health. Like, a cold is just a cold. When we hear mental health, crazy, period. Everything's like the worst. Like borderline personality disorder. You know how many people probably have borderline personality disorder in this country? But when you hear that, you think schizophrenia, when it's not even the same thing.
Yeah.
It's
But
not.
to be fair, in the pandemic, every sneeze and cough was COVID.
Right. And
And
we extreme.
Definitely
It's
cough.
always extreme. When it comes to mental health, people don't really educate themselves about mental health
No,
until
they
they have to
don't.
deal with it.
They don't.
Until they have to deal with a family member or themselves dealing with mental health. So therefore, we hear a man with bipolar or a man with what I just say, a borderline personality disorder has a gun. So a bunch of motherfuckers with both of those have guns and they don't kill nobody.
And
Sorry, go ahead.
okay, again, I think we're talking about semantics here, because I wasn't.
How is that
proponent-
semantics?
Because,
Just help me understand.
because you're saying that it shouldn't be so easy to get a gun. It shouldn't be so easy to get a gun.
Right.
It's not easy to get it's easy to get a driver's license. It's not easy to get a driver's license, and I stated that it should be.
I didn't say it was easy to get a driver's license. I said I actually agreed with you on the driver's license point, that you have to take classes, you have to take past tests. You don't have to do none of that to get a gun. So I actually agree with you on that.
Right. So if we do that, I mean, I don't have an issue with that. What I'm saying is that there's other regulations, just like Samson brought up, that someone, was 5450, and unfortunately they lost their right of access to guns because we've become so gun phobic due to these outlier cases.
Right.
When the actual issue is a cultural issue. You're right. We are bad
I
with mental
agree.
we're
100%.
we're also sexually repressed, because a lot of that anger is because of sexual repression. Even
A lot of
within two
pedophilia
things,
is that way too.
two things can be true. Dude can be a racist.
Yes.
Due to systematic racism.
Okay.
But also
And
he can have issues with sexual addiction because of the sexual repression that's within this country. So two things
Okay.
can't be true at the same time.
They
So
can.
again, we're breeding a culture of gun violence due to mental health, sexual repression, also a lack of economic resources. Because again, I said earlier in the conversation, you have cities like Chicago where they have some of the most restrictive gun laws in the country, but they have some of the highest gun violence rates.
But
And
you know that's the trend, right? The cities with the most restrictive gun laws actually have the highest. The highest. Am I just talking shit, or is that a thing?
no,
That's
because
what
it's
I
also
heard.
happening. Because that's also happening in DC. DC is on the uptick. There's
Right.
like 15,
But
15
I think it's not a. I don't think it's like. This is the thing about it. Like when it comes to the gun law thing, I don't think it's like so black and white. Because I feel like this. Okay. We cannot compare illegal gun use and illegal gun use. They're two different issues. Whether we want to agree, whether we want to accept that or not, they really are two different issues. Because people who have guns illegally, there's so much stuff that they like. If I have a gun illegally, especially if I'm a felon, I'm looking at time. I'm looking at massive consequences. Massive.
unless you're rich like T.I. or Lil Wayne. I know.
Unless you're rich like T.I. or Lil Wayne, that's a whole nother
And
conversation.
again, but my point is you're basically giving them my point.
I'm not disagreeing with you, Mo. I know you love to disagree with me, but I'm literally on here. I was like, let me get on here and back Mo up. But Mo loved to just argue and fight with me. I don't even know. I'm leaving. I'm leaving.
Don't leave. Don't leave. Don't leave.
I'm
don't
leaving.
Leave. Don't leave, brother. Don't leave. Don't.
I'm gone.
No,
Bullshit.
but like I said, I think it's semantics because I think we're saying similar points. But I just
We
don't
are.
believe- But I just don't believe all your point all the way. Because
Which part? Which part?
the part about that illegal guns and legal guns are two different issues,
Two separate issues.
but they're not because
Two separate issues. Yeah.
prime example, and I know that there's people in the comments that don't like me to compare apples and oranges, but I'm going to compare apples and oranges.
You can compare apples and oranges because guess what? They might be different types of fruit,
But they're still fruit.
but they're still fruit.
Exactly. So we tried to do a whole ban of alcohol. What happened?
Yes, we did.
We had
What
a
happened
whole-
is bootleggers started bootlegging alcohol.
What do you think is going to happen when you start regulating guns more? Oh, I can't get it here legally.
Okay.
And then a regular.
I'm gonna get it
regular time.
illegally. I'm gonna get it
I'm gonna go
illegally.
get it illegally. I can go get it from Jimmy from the block, and he probably
Right.
charges me $200 more, but I'll
Right.
have that piece. And
Right.
yeah,
But let's be clear. Let's be clear.
Wait. Yeah, I'm gonna get charged with it, but does that prevent the crime? No.
But let me tell you, this is where, and I might be saying too much. I'm nervous that I might be saying too much. But here's where you fuck up, right? I'm just average Paul, and I use the term Paul because Paul is a guy who wears polos every day, okay, and khakis. He works at a call center, and he's got 2 dogs. Can't get a date, can't get laid. I'm Paul, okay. And I decide I want a gun. It's too hard to get one legally, so I've got to get one illegally. How the fuck is Paul about to get an illegal weapon?
It's true.
How the fuck is Paul about to get an illegal weapon? Is he gonna talk to Tyrone and them? No, he's not talking to goddamn Tyrone. Cause Mo is frozen. I hate when Mo get frozen when I'm making my points. Cause then Mo gonna come back and they gonna be like, he ain't say shit. Well, y'all heard what the fuck I said. Y'all are my witnesses. Paul is not gonna be able to get a gun easily because you have to know people and like you have to be connected to get an illegal gun. Let's be for real, like you do. You're not just gonna like get a gun. So to me, when you make that comparison, it's like, no, that doesn't fit because it would still take, even still, if I decide to get a gun, I'm not gonna get one tonight. As Paul, even if I got one, it would take me. I would have to find the people. I would have to find the person. I would have to find all that stuff. I would have to do that work. It would probably take me the same amount of time. Sorry, go ahead, Samson. Sorry.
Yeah, you're fine. We only have to look as far as Japan, who has the strictest gun laws in the world, and their gun deaths are like statistically insignificant, and not even the Yakuza use guns. I mean, as soon as a gunshot is heard, it's going to be a straight lockdown on whoever uses that gun. and
Right.
they know it. So they obviously have far more brutal ways of killing people, but just
Mo, did you hear my whole point that I made?
No, missed it. Sorry.
I told y'all that's what was about to happen. I
No,
told
my
y'all.
internet.
That was
Emma.
planned. That
No.
was planned.
No, you
That
know
was
who
going
planned
back
it?
to-
The universe planned it because apparently it wasn't a good point.
so going back to what Mo was saying on culture, that's the point. Our culture just breeds it. And in Japan, they have a different culture, and they have the strictest laws in the world. To get a gun, you can get a gun. There is a way to get it, but you have to. The hoops you have to drop through to get it are crazy. And their gun violence is virtually zero.
So,
But here's another thing: police don't have guns either, right?
No, they
I
don't.
know in England they don't. I don't know about
Yeah, a lot of these places. Now, here's the thing about it. Like, I'm gonna contradict myself a little bit.
I'm waiting.
Man,
I'm listening.
Look,
We're listening.
when we get off camera, Mo, I'm reading your ass for filth. So at the
Wasn't
end of
the
the
first
day,
time. I
nah,
can't
right? At
believe
the, at the end of the day, it's like a lot of these countries that we want to pattern ourselves after. I think we have to agree to adopt more than just a policy, right? Because it's like a lot of these countries had to get there, and the thing about it is what we always seem to want to forget. America's a fucking infant. We are an infant. We're an infant amongst not even adults, elderly people.
Ancients.
Like we're like 400 or 500 years old. Those other countries are like 2,000 and 3,000 and 4,000 and 5,000 years old. Like we're babies, and we running around like we own the park, and the adults are just looking at us like, oh, that's cute. We'll just watch y'all self-destruct until y'all figure the shit out that we already figured out. So a lot of the older countries, free healthcare, gun control, like the police don't carry guns unless it's a gun type of situation, so they won't kill people. Like these are things that we haven't adopted yet. We think we're leading them, and they're fine letting us think that, because you know how when you're mature, you're just like, okay, cool, you'll learn. That's the energy, and we don't want to accept that because we want to go with this whole America's the best thing. The truth is, it's not a one solution thing. We can't just pick up decriminalizing drugs and that be it. No, it's more than that. It's decriminalizing drugs. It's gun control. It's police reform. It is like free. It's all of these things. It's not just one. Therefore, you're creating a society that is the most important one. You're creating a society of people who are less afraid of each other. You don't realize Americans are afraid of each other. Period. We're afraid of each other. Black people afraid of Asians. Asians afraid of black. Cops. We're all afraid of each other. Yet we want to say one nation under God. How? Who? And when? Like when? We're terrified of each other. Every goddamn day. They're terrified of the women taking their rights, and the women are afraid of the men taking their rights or hurting them physically, sexually assault. When you look at the numbers of that, you see there's a reason. When you list all these things, you realize we live in a country of fear. People barely feel safe in their own homes. How the hell are they going to feel safe outside of their homes? It literally takes something like COVID, 9/11 to bring us together. And you see how that barely brought us together. So we have to... 9/11 did, yeah, but COVID not so much. But we have to start adopting more than just one policy. We have to realize, like, if we want to create a culture of people that aren't afraid of each other, where neighborhoods are like, this, then we have to start with saying what's most important. Guns absolutely are a problem. We don't want to take everyone's guns. Responsible gun owners, thank you for being responsible gun owners. I'm going to say that. Thank you for being responsible gun owners, because that means that you are out there setting a decent example of how to have a gun responsibly. And y'all should be even more mad. Instead of defending these instances, y'all should be even more mad at these motherfuckers who aren't responsible with their gun use, because they're making y'all look bad.
Yeah.
Well, they're making themselves look bad. It doesn't matter if they're using a gun. And you're talking about access. If they don't have guns, it won't be as catastrophic.
Did I say that?
It was either you or Samson, but I believe you did. Oh yeah, I believe you did though. Here's the problem with that. You're saying, well, they don't necessarily know how to, it's not easily accessible to learn how to make a bomb. Yes, it is. There's a whole book called the Anarchy's Cookbook, which is no
Okay.
longer in print. However, the incels have it all over the internet that they swap between each other. It tells you how to make a pipe bomb. It tells
I'm
you how to
talking
make a bomb.
specifically a last minute change. I decided I want to do mass destruction and I can't get a gun, so I want to make a bomb. That's not something I can just do overnight. I can't just make a bomb unless I'm going to get on Google. But then when I start to research that shit, FBI flags.
You do realize that there is a dark web where the FBI hasn't gotten all the way deep.
I don't know nothing about the dark web, but let me tell you what. I'm talking about a person who decides in the spur of a moment
And even
to cause mass destruction. Like me, if I decided tomorrow to cause mass destruction and I couldn't get a gun and I want to make a bomb, I can't get on the dark web. I'm gonna have to call Tyrone.
well, you can always call somebody, and I'm pretty sure there's somebody in the groups that can do it. However,
But my point is that leaves a trail. That gives me time. That gives not me. That gives the FBI, the people out there. It gives them time to then say, "All right, this person's looking for ways to build a gun. Why?"
So
and,
you actually
okay,
highlighted-
but wait, when they go investigate, like with that whole shooting in Orlando,
You must not have
He had-
seen that the TV show with Jim Caviezel, whatever his name is, and Taraji P Henson, person of interest.
Jesus, yes, I did. I love that
Yes,
stuff.
and that's how I feel. Like, listen, when you leave, like, I don't care. I'm about to sound crazy. I'm about to sound like a conspiracy theorist, but I pray that they're monitoring that type of internet activity. I
Okay.
pray that they are.
Well,
For this reason specifically, like, please, yes, if they looking up how to make a bomb, watch their asses.
Eric Snowden had already proved that that's what's happening with the NSA. But the point of it is they have to take time to actually investigate it. So they go to that person's house, they ask questions, easily. They try to see if that person's crazy. And that's exactly what they did with the guy with the Orlando Pulse shooting.
Okay.
They visited him quite a few times over a 2-year period. Unfortunately, they didn't have enough evidence to pursue it. Well,
Okay.
guess what happened?
He shot up that place.
He shot at that place.
Which
most
is more reasoning why they should be stricter, because whatever their criteria was, let me say, whatever the criteria was for determining, not saying that he should have been arrested, but whatever their criteria was for deciding that he was high risk for committing that crime, the fact that he was on that list, it shouldn't have been no let's talk to him and see. Because the thing about it is, a lot of these motherfuckers that are gonna do that kind of stuff, they're master manipulators. And this is something us civilians can all know and agree on. These people in office, they should know that. The problem is that people don't want to do their jobs.
Okay, so going back to my point, if they're such master manipulators, do you think regulations of guns is going to stop them? Hell
Yes.
no.
It won't stop them. It won't stop them necessarily, but it can. You have to build. I'm sorry. When you're deciding to stop people who are determined to cause damage, it's not going to be as easy as a law. That's not how it works. These people have decided that their lives are no longer even valuable. Because when you've decided to do something like a mass shooting, you're either going to kill yourself or you planning to die with the police. Like, you're not talking to reasonable... Right, you're not talking to reasonable adults no more. So 1 or 2 laws ain't gonna be enough. You got to do your goddamn due diligence, which means 1 or 2, 1,000 laws, 1,000 protocols. Follow their ass, watch their ass, keep them on a goddamn leash. Period. Because they're the type of motherfucker that can go blow something. It's not no. Well, we went and talked to him and he seemed cool. Fuck that bullshit. Because now you got 10 people without mothers. You got 8 people without fathers. Or friends, you know what I'm saying? So to me, I'm like, look,
Okay.
if you're law enforcement, that goes beyond. Oh, we did a wellness check.
And again, you're basically putting more regulation into the hands of a police force that has statistically gone after poor people and people of color. So you're going to give them more ammunition in order to preserve and protect those communities.
I agree with you there. I agree with you there that I don't think, and somebody just said baby steps. I agree with you there that the police force has generally targeted black and brown people, minorities. I don't disagree. What I'm saying is there still needs to be steps in place Okay. Because police generally target black and brown people, let's not do those things. Right?
Good luck with that.
I'm not talking about let's not target black and brown people. I'm talking about let's not be strict on people who we think are high risk for guns. That's why that goes back to the point I was making before. It's not a one solution thing. In addition to these regulations, we need to also fix the goddamn police and make sure that there's less bias there. And that comes through different training, deeper training. Just like we said, it should be harder to get a gun. It should also be harder to become a goddamn policeman.
Yep.
And well, okay. So here's the thing: you can't.
Am I cursing too much?
No, you're good.
You can't train racism ideals out of a person. That's not how that works.
And I agree.
There has been an uptick of white supremacists being recruited within the police department. Those figures have been going up since the 90s. The FBI has been reporting this. But nobody cared until Black Lives Matter started raising the alarm about this issue. And people that are actually filming it because they have technology. They have phones that are crystal clear. So you can see plain as day someone's racism.
Right.
Racist means. So again, you would have to literally get rid of those people. And that's what they did in Newark. It was either Newark or Camden, New Jersey.
But here's the thing, though.
When they did that with the defund the police, they got rid of all of them and they rehired them based on their records. So basically, they rooted out all the bad ones. And
the bad apples.
And police brutality went down by 50% within that city.
Okay.
So,
but here's Tito. This is the thing about it. Like, if we decided, let's say, as a whole entire country, and I'm talking about the lawmakers, the people in power, we just decided tomorrow to say, you know what, we're tired of this bullshit. Racism is a problem. Gun violence is a problem. We just agreed that they were a problem. All the things we've been talking about tonight, right? And we need to address them. And then we started to put laws and things in place to address them. If we did that tomorrow, would it be fixed tomorrow? No. My point in saying that is saying that things would take time to be fixed and that it's not just a one-tier problem doesn't change the fact that in order to fix the problem, we got to start. Like, that's the thing I think that so often is translated. It's like, well, it's not just guns. Nobody said it was. Well, it's not just racist cops. Nobody said it was. But what we're saying is that let's start somewhere. And what happens so often is we just don't start because it's like, well, guns aren't the biggest issue. Let's not even start there. Race isn't the biggest issue. Debatable. Let's not start there. This isn't the biggest issue. Let's not start there. So then what happens is we just keep talking about this stuff and then not doing it. So my point is to say, all right, gun legislation. Gun legislation just meaning it's harder to get guns. Does that mean gun violence will end? Of course fucking not. And we're not saying that it will, but that's step one. Step two, let's address the racist cops. After that's done, is violence gone? No. Is inequity gone? No. What's the next step? But it has to start somewhere. And what happens is so often that is the argument on the left and the right. Let's be clear. Because Mo is not a right, I'm assuming, not right wing. But it's on the left and the right. The argument is, well, that won't fix everything.
You know what they say about assuming.
I like being an ass. I like being in ass. I like being around ass. Asses are amazing. So, like,
you go to your room, sir.
Listen, don't threaten me with a good time, okay?
You go to your room, sir.
Listen.
Okay. So, what you're saying is to prioritize, and I'm
not saying to prioritize. What I'm saying is, don't be afraid to start somewhere.
And I did give an idea of regulation, but I think we're giving away from what my dissent was with what you were saying. Okay. That illegal guns and legal guns are two separate issues. No, they're still within the same issue. Just like illegal alcohol sales and legal alcohol sales are within the same issue.
Continue, because I don't.
Okay, all right. We put these regulations into place, and they cause more harm than good. And I'm giving reasons of why it causes more harm than good. Okay. It's because you're going to have more illegal sales. And when people are trying to shoot up a building, they don't give a damn about a gun charge at the on the back end of it, because
Right.
their intent is more than likely they're trying to get suicide by cop.
Right.
So regulating the problem within that scope is not a preventative measure.
Let me enter. This is where I disagree. I think as I'm going to speak for me, the kind of gun legislation and gun laws
Wait,
that
CB Johnson. Yeah, there is illegal alcohol sales. It's not as prevalent that it was when, prior to the amendment to change it. But
yeah.
yes, there are black market alcohol.
It's like if I'm in my house right now, like here's an illegal alcohol sale, Brittany, and I know this as a bartender. So if you're at a brewery in this country, they cannot sell you beer at the brewery. They can serve you beer, but they cannot sell it. That's illegal. And so a lot of breweries, there's one in specific I know, what they do is they sell you a cup. And with the cup, you get bonus tickets that allow you to get beer. But they don't sell you the beer, they sell you the cup. So that's illegal. Go ahead, Mark.
It's still kind of an apples to orange argument, because with alcohol, who are you going to kill with it?
Well, see, that was the whole
cirrhosis of the liver?
Well, wait, no, that was the
alcohol
whole
poisoning?
Wait, pause. That was the whole premise of the suffrage movement.
Which suffrage?
Yeah, because that was around the time when alcohol was banned. They were saying that with alcohol, you become a vile person, where you beat on your wife and kill them.
Same thing with marijuana too. Yeah.
Right. Well, they did it with alcohol first, but they actually had more evidence with that, because with alcohol, you kind of become more of yourself.
Uncle Leroy, you become Uncle Leroy.
Yeah, but you can be,
Yeah.
But
like
that was the fight of the movement. They were saying if we get rid of it, unfortunately, it was a situation of the religious right. They were like, if we get rid of the alcohol, then we're going to get rid of all the violence that is happening. Unfortunately, that's not what happened. It was the complete opposite. You had these organizations of people that were smuggling in alcohol. Hell, NASCAR is built on prohibition, because they were basically souping up their cars and trying to outrun the local police. And they would, on Sundays, they would go onto a dirt track, and they would travel around it to see who could be the fastest. So NASCAR is breeding into illegal alcohol sales. Fun fact. So what I'm saying is that when you try to regulate something that can be considered dangerous for the general public, you can have adverse effects of it becoming black market, and you might even pose an even more problem, because again, these people are doing it and they just go to the black market, get what they want, then they have the incident where they're shooting a whole bunch of people, and at the end of it, if they survive, you're going to charge them with murder. And
we should go back to where you're trying to point out statistics, because black market there isn't going to change statistics there. It's not going to raise it in any capacity. In fact, when we're looking at, what data do you have to prove that more black market sales are going to cause more gun deaths or more alcohol deaths?
Chicago.
Wait.
Chicago has the most strictest
I think that's an outlier.
Regulations. No, it's not an outlier, because it also
I really do.
Because it also happens.
Oh my God! This is one of those moments where you want to land on one side of an argument, but you just don't. So you just decide not to say nothing.
Right. Also, DC has it has an uptick in violence. They've hit 15.5 deaths per 100,000.
Okay, but what are you saying about DC gun laws?
They have some of the strictest gun laws in the country.
For who?
For their citizens.
For legal carry of guns?
Yes, it's hardest to get a gun up there.
Okay, I wasn't challenging you. I just asked for who.
Okay,
but there's
that energy. That energy.
And mind you, this
I thought we loved each other.
I do.
No, we don't.
But
you hate me.
That's why I'm so passionate with you.
You hate me.
Passionate for you. But again, this is coming from an article from NPR. Just came out 2 days ago. On the average in this country, for every 100,000 people, you have 4 gun deaths on average. So we're looking at about, they said the figure was about 10,000 deaths. we have 50,000 deaths for alcohol. So what are we really? What's prioritized? What we need to do in order to fix the issues? That's what I'm saying.
Wait, isn't New Orleans ranked number 1 per capita for firearm homicides?
Yeah, that was the point I was going to make. Is if you look at
Not by state.
That's what
Right
I-
now, the highest is District of Columbia. It was 18 and a half
But
Okay,
that doesn't really
per 100,000.
that doesn't really
Louisiana's
factor into
number-
your point.
Louisiana's number 2 with 9.34 per 100,000. Georgia and
Yeah, that
Colorado
doesn't really
is
factor into your point.
5.62 per 100,000 in Georgia and 2.27 in Colorado.
Those
my
are some of
point-
the easiest states to get the guns, though. And if you look at the states at the bottom, they're the hardest states to get guns. Like, I know in some states you have to go to like the police department, which I don't think this is a good solution, but I'm just saying you have to go to the police department to have you have to like get it signed off if you want to have a gun. I don't think that's a good solution, but they're the states with the more stringent gun laws have more deaths per capita with guns. I mean, just statistically speaking, if you look at the southeast of the United States, a little bit of the southwest, if you go to Texas, they're the states with the highest, and they have the easiest. It's the easiest states to get guns.
I stand
And then
corrected. I do stand corrected because I'm looking at Chicago statistics. Cook County recorded 16,049 deaths in 2020, and 50% of it was gun violence.
I want to bring back and really harp on the point that you made that's really relevant. It's culture, and that's where we should be really focused on, is culture and education. I mean, those are the 2 biggest factors I think can really change the game.
Right. Which is basically what I'm saying. Even if you make a regulation, if you don't change the culture, they're just going to find another segue.
I
to
have
do
a
the same
solution,
violence.
but nobody. If you offer this solution, this gets just as much shit. If you say, "Hey, let's make college a right. Everybody can go to college." If we say, "Hey, let's make healthcare a right, so everybody that needs mental health help can get mental health help." Guess what? You're gonna get the same arguments for people that are against the sec. So it's like you're always hitting a fucking wall. It's true.
Well,
When
see,
you get
I'm a little on the fence with free college education because not everybody is suited for college. Some people
Well,
it's okay
trade
for them
school
to get
then.
a trade.
Right.
let's
And trade schools
career
are pretty-
education.
And
Career
trade schools are pretty cheap compared to colleges, and you end up with making about the same starting money
Yeah,
because
that's-
there's such a need for those trades.
And part of the problem is that we've all been trained since we were kids that you go to college after high school.
Right.
You like nobody really when you're in school, nobody ever really talks about trade school. And
But that's the issue. Like, the issue with this country as a whole is nobody wants to do no shit that's different. Let's be clear. We have this image of what America is supposed to be. The issue with that is when you align yourself with expectations, you're only going to be met with disappointment because no one 100% of the time is going to meet those expectations.
but so
I mean, that racially, when it comes to class, when it comes to gender, all that stuff. A lot of the stuff you're seeing in the politics right now has to deal with, I expect men to act this way. I expect black people to act this way. I expect gay people to, and when they don't, we act out. The problem is that we have not accepted that the way that we want the world to be, our America to be, won't be that way. We have to reconfigure We have to reconfigure. We have to reconfigure.
This
Don't do
sounds
that.
like-
Don't
It
do
sounds
that.
like our similar conversation that we had on Talk It Out, which comes on Thursdays.
Oh, don't do that on his show. No, we don't do that. We don't plug. We don't know.
you plug away. You
That's
are more
what it
than
sounds like.
welcome.
My point is,
Sounds like-
we have to reconfigure our ideologies of what it means to be American. When you really look at what like all, especially like the flag, like the Pledge of Allegiance, that is all about unity of differences. We're supposed to be a country built on the unity of differences, yet we criticize people most harshly for not fitting into the norm instead of embracing you for being different. Oh, you're not like me? Cool as fuck. Let me learn about that. No, we don't do that. You're not like me? Then you don't deserve a place. You don't, and all that stuff. That's what all of this stuff is talking about. When you talk about guns and mental health, the biggest issue there is that we don't know how to approach mental health because we don't take the time to learn. We know how to identify. Every American knows how to identify when someone has a cold, right? We know how to identify that. We do not know how to identify as every single American when someone's having a mental episode. Yet we should, because they're very common, just as common as common colds. People who don't even have mental diagnoses can have a mental episode.
Yeah.
But again, we don't allocate for mental health because we're too busy allocating for police departments having tanks.
Yeah.
And that's the thing about it. We have to change our mentality to say it's okay to have a mental lapse because that is normal for a sane person who has no mental diagnosis, no sort of prognosis or nothing that to have a moment of which makes them massively depressed or makes them massively angry or whatever the case may be. So therefore, I can tell the signs. Like if someone tells me they don't feel well, the first thing we do is what? Right?
Sure.
If someone tells you that they're feeling depressed, the first thing you do is go, "Oh fuck." You retreat instead of going, okay, tell me about your depression so I can know, is this like, do I need to call somebody, or you just need to talk to me real quick? You need to get this off your chest. And we don't do that because we don't teach that. We teach that mental depression means Jeffrey Dahmer, goddamn the DC shooter, the goddamn what's the dude with the what's the man with the glasses and the long stringy hair who had all the people drinking the cyanide? What's the man name?
Oh, Jim Jones.
Jim Jones. Like we do all that when we hear mental health. Well, really, mental health is just as simple as like, damn, I've been feeling really depressed the last week, and I might never feel depressed again. It's just like getting a cold. Like, granted, you'll get a cold. My point is, it's just that common. And until we accept that and stop judging people for feeling that way, we'll always run into these same issues. We won't know how to gauge whether someone's going to shoot up a grocery store or whether they're just having a bad day because we don't talk about it. We just pretend like, until you hurt somebody or yourself, it's not a concern. And that's a problem.
Well, I mean, again, that's going back to what the culture is for this country. That if it doesn't affect me, then it's not that big of a deal. But when it starts to hit, prime example, Meghan McCain, she was not worried about having maternity leave until she was stuck at home for several months because she had a medical condition where she couldn't move, and her husband and her mother had to take care of her child. And then she was like, I'm lucky that I have a job where I get paid leave. There are women out there that don't have that privilege. This should be regulated. This should be where everyone should have maternity leave. So, unfortunately, you're talking about changing the actual culture of this country, which is going to be 10 times harder than just putting in a law stating that, you have to do a waiting period for a gun.
Well, the problem that we handle that way because we handle everything in the U.S. like it's Windows 98. Instead of just, going forward and moving towards what's right, we try to accommodate every single crazy, asinine opinion about it and try to incorporate it all into our solutions instead of moving forward and doing what's right. And we'll never get anywhere if we keep letting ourselves getting bogged down that way.
Well, who's to say that that's right, putting it through their grace period when that can affect poor people and people of color more so?
Because it's like this. The overall goal is to not have it affect people of color more so, right? So it's like this. Okay, let me rephrase. You want these policies that go toward gun control not to affect people of color disproportionately. And I agree. So how do we do that?
Well, one of the least...
Wait, no. I'm sorry, Samson. Specifically to Mo, because Right.
It's
How do we
simple-
do
it's
that?
simple
Because
way-
let's not. We all agree that there do need to be things in place,
Yeah.
but the issue is that they affect Black and brown people more heavily. So, agreeing that they need to be there, what do we need to do? Should we do the gun laws first and then address, or what?
Instead
Like
of,
how?
instead of a waiting period, this is what you do. You have it, like I said, similar to getting a driver's license, because that technically could be a deadly weapon if in the wrong hands. You have them take a test, whether it's written or actual shooting range, where you have people saying, okay, all right, you know how to shoot. You know, you're not doing it all willy-nilly, because like Justin said, 60% of guns being actually used, it hurts the person that actually uses them. So if we regulate within that manner, then regardless of if you're POC or poor, you're going to have that similar access to that gun. And if you're not able to afford, like I believe in some states, if you're not able to afford like an ID or whatever, there's programs where you can get an ID. Same thing, I believe also with a driver's license, but don't quote me on that. So if we go with that approach as opposed to, let's put a 3-day waiting period. Okay, well, 3 days is not going to make a difference if a person's already unhinged. More than likely,
3 days. The 3 days.
But that 3 days could be used to determine if they're unhinged. Determining whether, let me tell you this, like when you talk about them government, them legal restrictions, and those, like, the thing about it is like, if you go to court and the judge decides that you need to have a mental evaluation, that is not a 1-day evaluation. It's not. It's minimum 3 days where they're evaluating you. It's not just a simple, let me look up whether, because when you talk about background checks, those background checks, they simply check to see if you have a criminal record.
Yeah.
Well,
They don't check to see how many times the police have been called on your ass without you
it's
going to jail.
It's another thing with more the same though, because again, who are they going to check out more? They're going to check out black and brown people more, or Asian. They're not going to check out white people as hard.
they're not.
It's going to be the same problem again. That's not the solution. You need to lock it down to like a whole cloth universal determination of, like I said with my safety check, you don't like that idea, fine, but anything to that's universal and federally like standardized, instead of leaving it up to people making their determination. Oh, we're just going to research this hard, that hard. Leave it to human determination. They're going to become biased again, and you're letting it up to bias. That's the problem I have. We need to move forward, and the least, coming back to my point, is the least popular thing that revolutionized our country was public schools. Public schools was definitely the least popular thing that we ever could have proposed, and probably shouldn't have gotten passed in technicality, because most of the country was against it. What happens now? It's a normal thing. We ripped that Band-Aid off. Now we've accepted it. It's a normal thing. We can do that with free college. We can do that with federal legalization of guns. It become normal, and people will get less irritated about it because we ripped off that Band-Aid.
And unfortunately, the Republican Party has, on the local and state levels, basically gutted public schools so much so that you've had stories of a child that basically passed one class within their high school education, and they became the top 40 percentile.
And Oklahoma was one of the worst in that.
And also, I stay in Georgia, Atlanta. You know, I'm not going to age myself. However, when I graduated high school, the next year afterwards,
we know you're 57.
Your mama.
Don't worry about it.
Your mama.
Oh, wow.
Anyway.
And they come out swinging.
They showed you, honey. Yes.
Okay.
Okay. So there was a case where there were several cases where these kids, they went to predominantly African American schools, public schools. They had straight A's their entire high school education. They took the Georgia graduation exams and failed every portion of it, including reading and math. Math was only at an 8th grade level, learning level. and the reading was at a fifth grade reading level. So that means they weren't able to understand the USA Today paper, but they received straight A's. So yeah, we got it passed, but unfortunately, it's been gutted, and it's been gutted purposely because the powers that be want us to be dumb as possible and breed a culture of said violence.
You
And
you
until we
conflated
change,
a heck of a lot in that, because really it was all about really the national standardized education standards like Common Core, and they were just completely against it. And Common Core was probably one of the best initiatives we could put out there for the country. But unfortunately, not only the ones that were against it attacked it and really gutted a lot of that, what could have really helped bring everyone together in a standardized level of education, but the ones that advocated for it also implemented it wrong. I mean, we're just in a culture of allowing, because like states' rights, allowing good initiatives that could be federally regulated to really standardize and bring up our education nationwide. But because of states' rights, we let them gut it, we let them implement it wrong, and we never have this national standard of education. And that's where we really need to focus on, because we then become more susceptible to fake news, what bullshit everyone's telling us, because you're not educated right. And it just sounds good, so it appeals to my emotion, and then I'm going to go vote for you.
yeah, we're talking about confirmation bias. But basically, what I'm saying is that every victory that we feel that we've gotten in this country, unfortunately, the other side has figured out loopholes and ways to gut it. So, regardless of what regulation that we try to put into play, until we change the actual culture of this country, it's not really going to solve anything. You can have them wait 3 days.
But that's what I've been trying to say, Mo, is that we have to get away from this mentality of until we change everything, nothing's going to work. Because what that does is it stops us from changing.
Well, I already told you what my main plan is.
I get, but the problem is this.
No, I'm not talking
wait,
about.
No. Let me just.
No,
wait.
Wait.
I'm not
talking
wait.
about with gun control.
Wait.
I'm talking about overall. If we actually spent time and voted in our local elections like the Republican Party did 40 years ago, half the shit that we would have going on right now wouldn't be going on. But we don't do that. We only vote during the presidential elections, I guess, because that's the time to be sexy.
Right. Listen, Mo is a very big proponent of voting, as am I. I'm not as big a proponent as they are, but I feel like, okay, vote. Mm-hmm. Now that we've agreed that voting is a thing and it needs to be done, let's talk about this. There's a movement towards inaction in this country. This whole ideology of, well, you go first. Well, you go first. Well, you go first, right? And what that does is nobody goes first. So then we just continue to talk about these problems. We just continue to describe.
But that's how this country was founded. I mean, hell.
Cool. Literally everything I said in this conversation is about getting past that. Like, fuck how it was founded. Fuck what we think. Fuck what we expect. None of that shit's working. None of it. But yes, you're right. I'm not denying what you're saying. I'm actually not even arguing against what you're saying. I'm saying, yes, you're right. That is how this country was founded. And that shit don't work. If it worked,
it's not working for you. It's not working for you, but it's plenty.
It's not working out for you neither. I'm sorry, I'm excited. It's not working out for you neither. It's not working out for you neither, because you sitting up here saying, oh, this, that, and the third. I'm like, look, gun control is an issue. But when we try to address that issue, it absolutely affects certain people more often. So we need to address the issue in a way that is impartial. I'm saying all this. What I'm saying is we have to get past that. Well, this has already been done. This is the way we do all that mentality, because what that does is it fuels inaction, where it's like, well, I don't have to focus on gun control because let's focus on the inequities of justice against black and brown people. When two things can be true at once, meaning we need to focus on both of those issues. And I'm not going to stop focusing on gun control because it affects black and brown people more heavily, because at the end of the day, both of those issues need to be addressed. And you're saying, let's address the black and brown issue first. What I'm saying is, address them.
What I'm about to say is going to piss off a lot of people.
Mo,
But wait. What I'm going to say, I know I'm going to jump off the deep end. I'm going to go ahead and say it.
you live on the deep end, Mo. Let's be clear. You live there, and you swim in that motherfucking, and you be bathed, and you be relaxing. That's all I'm saying. You live in the deep end. What do you mean?
I'm not willing to forsake my legal rights or anyone else's legal rights, particularly brown and black people of color and poor people, just because a few people died due to gun violence. And I know that sounds callous, but statistically, those 10,000 people that died due to gun violence is still not as big as other epidemics. So
let's be clear, though, Mo. Let's be for real. Let's be for real. This is the issue I have, because I was talking to somebody about. I was watching a debate. I was watching a debate on trans issues today, and in the issues, somebody basically said, "Well, they're intersex people," and somebody said, "Well, what are the percentages?" Basically, to suggest that because there's a small percentage of intersex people, let's not worry about that. Fuck that bullshit. That's still a whole human life. That's still a whole human life. Like, if we can do anything to stop a child from growing up without a mother, or a child from growing up without their brother, or having to deal with the trauma of losing their best friend, if we can do anything to stop any of that, whether it's one individual or 10,000, it doesn't matter about numbers. And like, that's the problem. It's always a comparison. Wait, I'm not done.
Okay.
Go ahead. It's always a comparison. It meaning that, once again, these things can be right or correct at the same time. It's not a comparison. Like,
how far do we
if 10,000 people are dying from gun control, like from guns not being regulated the way they want, that's an issue. It's not like an issue that we can only address once we do X, Y, Z, and the third. Because to me, it's the reason, honestly, initially, I wouldn't have a problem with what you're saying. The problem that I have with what you're saying is that mentality has so often led to inaction. If it wasn't leading to inaction, I wouldn't have a problem with it. But what happens is, so often, it's like, I want to focus on the issue that I think is most important. Therefore, even though I agree that these issues are important, they're not important until the issue that I've decided is most important is important. And to be honest, Mo, I'm not saying that your issue is not important. What I'm saying is, if you ask a different person any time of the day, any different day, they're all going to tell you a different issue that is most important. So if we're going to determine which one issue is going to be the issue we decide to attack first, we're never going to do anything, because no one's ever going to agree on one issue that stands paramount to all the other ones. So let's just start fucking working on all of them.
And that's not true, because we do. It's called the economy.
That's what you think. But if you ask Destiny, I bet Destiny would not tell you that the economy was the biggest issue.
We spent
okay, she right there. She's sitting in front of us. Destiny, what do you think the biggest issue facing America is today? Is it the economy?
Well, I think it's hate.
Okay. And again, I would still disagree, because
that's my point. But that's my point. My point is that exactly.
We just had a whole bill, $1.9 trillion, in order to help boost the economy. Did we not?
Mo. I'm not saying the thing about it is, but the thing about it is, we want to sit and argue over who's right about what's the biggest issue instead of just addressing all of the fucking issues. We get so stuck.
Tonight, only two. Stick to two.
Say what? I'm sorry, Sam.
We don't need to address all of them. We're just addressing two tonight.
Tonight. But my point is to say that, like, what happens is we so often get because this is a perfect example. Destiny says the biggest issue we deal with is hate. Mof says it's the economy. So what would end up happening is we would sit there and argue over which one of those two is most important, instead of agreeing that they're both fucking issues and just addressing them. We would get stuck right there and deciding which one is more important, and that's the biggest issue.
To your point, though, how do we allocate time and resources to issues if we don't decide what's most pressing?
I'm glad you asked that. This is why. I was talking to a friend of mine, and she was saying that basically she has an issue. I forget. I didn't remember which friend it was, but she was basically saying like, if I was a woman in the 1960s, 70s, when Jim Crow was when they were trying to abolish Jim Crow, I would not have been a feminist if I was a woman back then, because I would have been more focused on black issues, not women's issues. And I said, and that's why there's 8 billion people on the planet, because while you're focusing on black issues, somebody else can absolutely be focused on women's issues. It is not a thing where every person has to turn toward one issue. You can do more than one thing at once. Do you know sometimes I'm not going to say that example because that's a little too dirty for this program. But sometimes I multitask, okay? I do 2 things at once. I will brush my teeth. Yes, I can brush my teeth and watch the news at the same time.
And unfortunately, there has been studies showing that you're not as effective when you're doing too many things.
Okay, fine. So fine. Let's say that there are 5 people on this screen right now. So all 5 of us don't have to address one issue at one time. And let's be clear, we've seen this because you've seen black people. You've seen Mo. Let's be clear. You, me, and Destiny, and I'm not trying to be rude to Samson or Justin, but you, me, and Destiny are the definition of intersectionality. And I'm going to assume, Samson, I just don't know you well enough to say. We're the example of intersectionality, which means we deal with multiple forms of oppression at once. So I will literally have a conversation about somebody about being LGBTQ and black in a heartbeat. You know what I'm saying? In the same conversation. We have no choice but to multitask. So to say that everybody on here, even though we're all going to have... So if Destiny is dealing with LGBTQ issues most prominently, or women's issues most prominently, and Mo is dealing with LGBTQ issues most prominently, and I'm dealing with black issues most prominently, it doesn't mean that I don't care about women's issues, or it just means that we're all attacking the problems separately while we still care. Like, we still have each other's backs, but at the same time, we don't all have to focus on one issue, because what happens is, while we're focused on that one issue, the other ones grow. It is not a one.
Just because somebody doesn't intersect with those issues doesn't mean that they don't care about it and fight for it.
That's not what I was saying. The reason I pointed the 3 of us out is because, like, it's a life that we live. Like, we don't get to choose. I wasn't. You said what?
I said Deary A's a racist. I was joking.
I hear that all the time. I've been called racist more in the last month than I have my whole life.
Ironic. It's so ironic because you're like the sweetest human being ever.
Listen. When people say that to me, I just be like, okay.
And it's like, so because
it's crazy because people be like, oh, Juria hates white people. I'm like, I love white people. I don't like crazy ass white people. I don't like them fuck ass white people. But I love white people. Like, you know what I'm saying? But anyway,
the sad part, growing up, you were the proponent. Like, come on, guys. White people aren't like that. You shouldn't really have that type of mindset. Now that he done grown up and experienced it, oh, these white folks.
Shit changes. But my point is, I just think that in general,
evidence helps.
We have to honestly be open to the idea that it's okay to address, let me not even say attack, to address more than one issue at once. And as marginalized people or an ally of a marginalized group, it is okay for you to address more than one issue at once. Like, to me, I was talking to my daddy today, and I was like, Dad, it's crazy to me. Like, I have a big issue, and I hope I'm not offending you, Samson, but I have a big issue with the appropriation of the black culture by Asian people, right? That does not change how I feel about what the fuck happened last Wednesday. Like, period. Stop Asian hate, period. You know what I'm saying? Like, because my point is saying none of us are perfect. We all have issues within each other's community, and that's a conversation to be had. That does not mean that because I have those issues with appropriation of my culture that I'm going to be silent when Asian people are being murdered.
And some people disagree with that, but that's a whole nother story.
And that's a whole nother story. My point is just to say that we can address more than one issue at once.
You're absolutely right. Now, I think what I really can't stand is that there is a lot of trolls out there, particularly the right-wing trolls that love to bring up the statistic that 80% of violent crime is done by African Americans.
Oh,
so
yes.
African Americans should be the ones that are under the microscope. And
that's literally why 87% of crime, like the statistics that they're. I'm sorry, because I'm gonna go off.
Let's break it down.
I'm gonna go off.
Statistics
Please fix it.
The statistics that they're bringing up are from 2008 when the economy broke. That's that statistic. And unfortunately, we all know that our previous commander in chief made scathing comments about Asian Americans, particularly Chinese Americans.
Which commander in chief are we talking about? We talking about the Orange Cream Dream? Okay.
He that has no name. No, I'm joking. The point of it is he called it the China virus. He called it the Kung Fu virus. Unfortunately, people are not that coofed in this country, and they can't tell someone that is Chinese from Korean or Vietnamese. As a matter of fact, the situation in Georgia, 4 out of those 6 Asian women that were killed were Korean American. So again, unfortunately, when you're dealing with these type of issues, people are going to try to push their agenda and push the focus of the issue. And so when we have these tragedies happen, I feel like when gun control coming up is kind of a way to kind of skirt the issue, because even if you had those regulations in place, just like with capital punishment, it's not a deterrent. It's just not. You would have to physically change the culture of our country, how we approach guns. And what? Why did you give that look?
Me?
Yeah. Oh, you're yawning.
I was yawning.
I'm sorry. I'm not entertaining enough for you.
Oh no! It wasn't. Look, it's literally it's midnight. What do you mean?
I can just shut up now.
And I'm over 25, so yes, I'm yawning.
Look, and I'm over 25 as well.
So yeah, then you should understand.
However, I mean, I've only had 4 hours of sleep, and I'm still going strong here because I'm that passionate about this show. Okay. And about your show, Duryea. I love you.
Stop doing that, Mo. We are on collective objective right now. We still fuck. But I just feel like this. I feel like it is important to, and I think I've just noticed that recently. I think I've had that epiphany today. Is this like the biggest argument against actively dismantling a specific type of oppression has been another type of oppression, and that annoys the fuck out of me. It's like, okay, so like because gay people are oppressed, black people can't be oppressed. Because I actually meant to say it the other way. Because black people are oppressed, gay people can't be oppressed. Because women are oppressed, transgender people can't be oppressed. Like, what are you saying? No, two things can be true at once, and that stops us from progress. Because literally, it's crazy. Like, the thing I love the left about is that we hold each other to the fire, right? But it's also our biggest flaw because we get stuck on fuck shit. Like, totally a non sequitur. But that woman just got arrested today for doing nothing. Nothing.
Knocking that man's door.
Literally nothing. She was arrested and they knew they were on camera and did not care. Because let me tell you, even if her charges get dropped, they did what they wanted to do. They removed her from that situation. That was the goal. It doesn't matter. Even if the charges get dropped, I'm not going to lose my job. And she will no longer be in front of this man's door. So, cool. Let's take that hit. And the police know that. They know that. It's like the worst that's going to happen is they'll drop her charges. I'm not going to get in trouble. There's no consequence for them.
That arrest record doesn't go away, though. That arrest record
it doesn't. It sucks. It sucks for her. Yeah. It sucks for her. But the point is this, though. The point is this. The police who did it, well, I'm sorry, just say this, I'm be done. The police who arrested her, nothing, even if it was a bad arrest, nothing's gonna ever happen to them. So they can continue to do shit like that to arrest people at their will. And all they have to do is be like, all right, if it was a bad arrest, they're just gonna dismiss the charges. No one's gonna ever look at me one way or another. That's what I'm talking about when you talk about these things. Yes. We do need to address gun control. We also need to address the way police behave. And what sucks is, and I'm not really a proponent, but I will say this, all police aren't like that. They're really not like that. And it really sucks because as a black man who's been arrested multiple times, do you know how much fear and anxiety I've been every time I've been arrested, which has actually caused me to get more charges. than the charge I would have gotten. My fear and anxiety, just because they were the goddamn police. And they weren't even they were literally just trying to do their jobs. And because I was so goddamn anxious, I got extra charges because I wouldn't cooperate because I was terrified for my life. You know what I'm saying? These are things that we don't think of, and these are things that are justified. I had a very good reason to feel the way that I felt towards them.
Okay.
So
Editor's note: the situation that Duryea was talking about is with Governor Brian Kemp today, who is the governor of Georgia, signing a bill which has basically been protested against as voter suppression. One of the state representatives, I believe her name is Duke Cannon, went to was in the Capitol building and knocked on his door, which she's well within her rights because the Georgia state legislature is still operating. So she was well within her rights to knock on that man's door, and she was arrested by the police and escorted off of the property. So, a completely different issue, but I do get your point with what you're saying, Duryea. I'm just saying that.
What am I saying?
You're saying that we have to do something, and we can't just keep arguing over what do we do and not support each other. I get what you're saying. However, I'm not going to be a blind Republican that's just going to follow everything just because I want cheaper taxes.
Hey.
And that's basically what it boils down to. They love to talk about they're a free thinker, but it seems like the only upswing with the Republican Party is that you have lesser taxes. Everything else, it seems to be against your own personal gains. So
They don't want suppression to end on any level at all. They don't.
Right. So
Because this is the question you have to ask yourself: why the fuck are you suppressing votes?
because they know statistics.
We know. My point is, what's the problem? If you felt like you were doing the right thing and people agreed with your ass, you would not have any reason to suppress not one motherfucking vote. The fact that you feel the need to put legislation into place to suppress votership means you know people don't fuck with the shit you selling. They don't want to buy it, and you're trying to force them to have that shit.
And furthermore, with the whole voter suppression thing, I am so glad that Dominion, which was the company that did the voting for the state of Georgia, is suing Rudy Giuliani and other people for a sum of $1.5 billion.
Fuck the money. I don't even care about the money. I want them to reverse.
Okay.
Mo, you know more about politics than me. Let me ask you a question. Is the shit that happened today reversible?
Yes. Basically, you'd have to take it to the
Supreme Court.
And the Supreme Court is currently 6-3. So,
but this is the thing about it. I don't think. Look, I have faith. Surprisingly enough, I actually have faith in our current Supreme Court. This is why. Everything that I've heard about that they voted on thus far has actually been impartial. So far, I feel like if
it was impossible, I'm just saying it's going to be an uphill battle.
But I think I like to believe, as the patriotic American that I am, and I know some people might not think so. As the patriotic American I am, I like to think that the Supreme Court, as I've seen them behave thus far, will honestly be like, this shit is unconstitutional. Like, why the fuck can't you give people water in line?
Hold on. CB Johnson, yes, they will go to other courts first. However, we know
they'll get to the Supreme Court.
It'll go all the way to the Supreme Court, where the Supreme Court will have a choice of actually hearing it out or saying, no, the lower courts is fine. Thank you. Appreciate it. State Supreme Court, Federal Court of Appeals, and Supreme Court. Yes, that is the whole process. But we know with these type of laws, it typically goes up to the Supreme Court. That's the reason why they've been trying to put in such stringent rules as far as abortion, because they want it to go to the Supreme Court, because they really want to strip Roe v. Wade. Now, here's the thing. The Supreme Court, Chief Roberts, he also wants it stripped, but he wants it stripped in a more gradual way. So they're basically bucking what his agenda is. So I don't know how this is going to end up in the end. This is going to be very interesting within the next few years, because there's been several states that have put up very similar legislation for that. But yeah. Regardless, at this point, I know you. Back to your comment about that, just because it doesn't affect one person. I know I'm rambling.
No, it's not. It's not you, boo. You good. You good.
Okay, I appreciate that. You made the comment that, well, what about situations where there are minority like trans people? Again, that's a cultural issue. And
What's the cultural issue?
well, violence against trans women. That's a cultural issue. It is a cultural issue.
I want to tread lightly because I'm not disagreeing that trans issues are an issue. How when you say a cultural issue, you mean American
Meaning
culture?
it's a culture of,
Because I think that's an issue literally everywhere.
Some countries worse than America.
I don't think there's any place where trans people are just safe.
Thailand.
Really? Okay. I mean, I'm not arguing with you. And that's why I want to be clear. I'm not arguing with you. I just don't know.
It's rare, but what I'm saying is that for some reason there's the issue of subhuman, and that kind of leads into that.
Thailand.
Yeah. See. But they're an outlier. The rest of the world.
And I would have never thought that. And I'm glad that you said. I'm glad I learned that tonight.
They believe in the third gender, which fun fact: there's more than two. There's more than two sexes, but yes, you talk to a biologist, they will tell you there is more than just the binary.
And you could be different on different levels within your body biologically. It's like you can have different at the cellular level, different at the anatomy level, different
Because again, intersex births account for 1 in 2,000 births. So it has been happening since the beginning of time, but we just didn't really know how to classify it. Now that we're in a modern age and we have science, we can classify it. Unfortunately, we have such culture that is such stringent within the binary, then that's where we have these problems. We have the gender wars, or a men against the women, and you have people like Ben Shapiro that says, just because you call yourself a woman, you're still a man to me, so I'm going to address you as such, which is completely disrespectful. If you say your name is Duryea, and on your birth certificate it may say Jimmy, guess what? I'm going to call you Duryea because that's the name that you stated that you are.
Right.
And that comes from a platform of respect for you as a
But here's the thing. We're not taught in America, outside of the South, to like a place respect above everything else. So the issue becomes like, if I don't agree with transgenderism, why should I not ism, sorry. When I don't agree with the ideologies and sorry, I don't know how to say this correctly because it's so fucking stupid. But if I don't agree with people identifying as a gender that they are not assigned at birth, then why should I tell this person and refer to this person as the pronouns in which they choose? Because, motherfucker, if I tell you that my name is Duryea, but I don't want you to call me D, every time you call me D and I don't respond to your fuck ass, don't be surprised. And I give you it. It's disrespect, plain and simple. So if you have a problem referring to a trans person by their pronouns, don't be mad when they don't talk to your ass, and don't be mad when they give you negative energy. And then what's crazy is you want to claim, oh, you're being aggressive. No, I told you that I don't refer to those pronouns, and you continually call me those pronouns. So a big one of these to you. I'm not gonna show the finger, but essentially, I know, because it's like
get shut down.
I'm trying not to, but it is one of those things. Respect isn't. It's all about you. It's all about my right. I don't agree with you being transgender. Okay, fine. Don't agree with it. But if you're going to engage with me, be respectful. Those are two different issues, and people don't get it. People think it's the same issue. I don't agree with transgender people, so I'm only going to call a man if I feel like they're a man. No, at the end of the day. Otherwise, just don't engage. That's always an option. There's literally 8 billion people on the planet. So don't engage with the person. So when people go out of their way to engage with a person that is trans, or that is something they don't agree with, intentionally to misgender them, that's beyond disrespectful.
It is.
And you get what you
That's
get.
his point. It's hate.
It's basically you're basically
One thing,
not saying that they're human beings. You're basically saying they're subhuman.
Yep.
one thing I want to bring up, I think that this we fetishize and obsess over guns, and I think that is part of our cultural.
Yeah, we do.
It's
We do.
a symbol of like, oh, I'm a man because I have a gun.
Which goes back
That's
to my
why
original point.
somebody said this. They said that, and I said this last night on the show. They said basically, in order to get a gun, you should have to win 4 fights.
That's a good point.
When I heard that, I was like, "That's epic," and I love like it's never gonna happen. But the idea is to
And
say
let me
like,
explain
if
to
you
you.
can't handle your issues in a way that is not deadly force, then maybe you don't need, because I don't think this is, but I do think a lot of these people who commit these mass murders do it with guns because they can't fight. Listen, and I stress this. I would never start a like that kind of like, I'll talk shit all day, but if I'm talking shit to somebody who I know can kick my ass, I'm only gonna talk so much shit. I'm only gonna talk so much. I'm just like, and I'm gonna start mumbling under my breath. Yeah, motherfucker. What you say? You fucking say.
Yeah, I'm gonna stop talking, but when they
Right.
walk away, I'm gonna start.
I'm gonna start talking again. Yeah, you know, you heard the fuck I
But-
said.
Right.
And be done
going-
with it.
But also, that's like I was saying in the beginning, going back to my original point, I feel that if we weren't so sexually repressed, people wouldn't be fetishizing their guns so much, because that sexual repression that causes anger within you because you're not getting that release. That's the reason why old school fighters back in the day, when they would have a fight, they would refrain from having sexual intercourse
They
with a
still
woman.
do that to this
Yes,
day.
some of them still do that, right? Because when you have sex with a woman, mainly with a woman, or a person of opposite sex, your levels of hormones go down. So your testosterone levels go down after you have that moment of pleasure. So they refrain from that in order to keep their edge. That's the same thing with sexual repression in this country. I promise you, if they would not keep sex so repressed, like 15 years later, people are still talking about Janet Jackson's nipple that was out for like 2.5 seconds on CBS, and they received like a multi-million-dollar fine because of that, which it wasn't even her fault, and basically ruined her career. So, but if we was in Europe, I mean, I don't think that nipple would even made a difference. They would have been like, "Oh, was that a nipple?" Yes, it was, and they would have moved on with their day. But I mean, I think, me personally, I think that's a big issue in America, right along with economics. People ain't getting no money; they're not getting laid. It's gonna be somebody's gonna have to pay for that.
And they probably made a lot more money than that $1 million fine. They probably made a lot more money off that stunt than $1 million fine off
Well,
her.
Well,
Just saying.
not for her. They basically crippled her career afterwards. They blackballed her because CBS is a company under Viacom. Viacom owns MTV, VH1, local TV, BET, among several other conglomerates and radio stations.
And
So
Justin Timberlake was off to the races.
basically kissing whoever ass he can find, and left Janet out by herself when it wasn't even her fault. He grabbed her outfit, piece of her outfit, not the other way around. But
Listen, I know we're a little off subject, but
yeah, off subject. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. I think it's, but the reason I think it's important is like, we like to pretend like these topics are like they exist on an island, right? It's like, oh, if we could just deal with transgender issues, but transgender issues also deal with feminist issues, misogyny, race. People might not race. When you talk about gun laws, you cannot talk about gun laws without talking, like Mo said, about race. You cannot talk about gun laws without talking about mental health. You can't do that. You can't talk about mental health without talking about the criminal justice system. It is almost impossible. And I know we got off topic tonight, and I will concede that we did get off topic, but it's because the idea is that somehow these issues are addressable. That's not a word. Addressable as a individual issue, and that's not true. You can't really. Okay, let's place gun laws. Okay, great, we can do the gun laws, but how can we make gun laws without considering how the law disproportionately affects black and brown people versus white people? So when we're implementing new laws, what we're really doing is placing stronger laws on black and brown people.
It happens every time.
Like, we can't have that. We can't have just that conversation. And that's what I think. I think it's important. I think that's what is interesting about tonight's conversation, is that it did take the life it took, because it's like, you have to understand, none of this shit is a one trick pony. Like, I can just do this one thing and it's like all of this stuff is intertwined in one another. Therefore, you have to look at it all. So that's how I feel about it.
All right.
Yeah.
Let's wrap up and then we can hang out. Do you guys want to say anything in closing?
I want to apologize to all listeners for the collective objective. I know our focus was supposed to be on 2 issues, and I am very passionate about those issues, and we did go on very long tangents on other issues, and like Duryea said, they are intersectional. However, I should have maintained focus as far as the subject in hand, and I definitely apologize also to the people that are affected by gun violence. My comments were insensitive. That was not my intention. It was basically stating that I didn't want a group of people being ostracized due to issues of violence. When you do it, it doesn't help facilitate solving the problem to begin with. That was the point that I was trying to make. And I love you guys. And on a lighter note, everybody, if they look at the bottom of the screen to the left.
Really?
Yes. Whatever
Really?
donations that you may have, make sure you check out my Cash App at $. That's MOESMITH, Mo Smith Pro. Any amount will do. Whatever you have in your hearts. Thank you, guys.
I just wanted to say that, my heart goes out to all the people that have experienced loss through gun violence, and especially the people in Colorado and Georgia. Obviously, thoughts and prayers are not the answer, so let's stop that bullshit. And tomorrow night, the collective objective is going to be having a game night to kind of have a lighter, more entertaining thing. Hopefully my internet works a little better, so I hope you all can come join and play games.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. Duryea, you got any closing comments?
My closing comments are simply this. It is important for people to understand intersectionality. People don't get it. Like, you can be black and I'm sorry, let me say, like, you can be a woman and also have issues with oppression and race and class, and it's not a one trick pony. Whenever someone and if you actually claim, like, I hate the term SJW, right? It's a negative connotation put on people who are out trying to find, so everybody should be a SJW. Why the fuck are you not? Social justice. That basically just means that no matter who you are and what you are, you deserve justice. Why is that a bad thing? That I'm a warrior for that. Like, I'm fighting for rights of people who hate me. So I think it's very important. I think it's very important for us to start realizing that, like, if you really claim to be like, oh, I'm a this or that, I'm a Republican, blah, 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 and you're about creating positive interactions with people and stuff like that, then you need to be okay with intersectionality and learning that, like, you have your faults and that's cool. And so that's where I leave it. Like, go about things on a level of thinking where it's not just a one trick fix. It's like a whole circle of things, and they're all interconnected. I think I made my point. I'm not sure if I did. I tried though.
No, I think you did. It is. It's like it's almost like everything that, if you want to call us social justice warriors, they're all intersected with other issues, and that's kind of why tonight we wanted to do mental health and guns. But then you guys actually brought up a great point. It's more than just that. It's so complicated, but somehow we have to start working towards a solution, and maybe it is just going all in. Instead of having like all these small debates within the left, maybe we just all need to go to the fight and bring it. Because it seems like on the left and the right is all unified on what they want to do, where the left has all this diversity of ideas and how we get into a more inclusive society.
Right. But the right also is masters at ignoring things. Like, it's like, okay, I'm a right person and the leader of the right is saying this, even though yesterday I said something totally different. Fuck it.
Yep. With closing, I do want to bring up the victims. This is actually Destiny's idea. I want to bring up the victims' names on the screen, and then we will close out the program. Let's see if I can figure this out.